If you live in Taipei, or even if you just find yourself here for business, the word Neihu usually triggers a very specific, almost Pavlovian response. You immediately picture the science park. You see the glass facades of these massive headquarters. You see engineers with lanyards rushing to grab lunch. And let's be honest, you picture brake lights.
A sea of brake lights.
Yeah.
It's the engine room of the modern economy. It's silicon, software, and, total gridlock on the Ruiguang Road Bridge at 6 p.m.
Exactly. It feels like a place that was built yesterday purely for the sake of efficiency.
Right.
But I was looking through the stack of research you sent over for this deep dive, and it just completely upended that perception for me. We aren't looking at the tech hub today.
No.
We are looking at what is underneath it.
That is the mission. We are peeling back that glossy high-tech veneer. Because if you know where to look, Neihu isn't some new development. It is actually a massive time capsule. Yeah, and we've identified 5 specific sites, our hidden gems, that tell a story not of technology, but of resilience. We're going to talk about stone, coal, fire, architecture, and even dragonflies.
It sounds like we are building a fantasy RPG map, not exploring a city district.
It kind of feels like that sometimes.
But before we get to the dragonflies, we have to address the name itself, Neihu. Now, I've always translated this literally as inner lake.
Which is a classic linguistic trap. Everyone does it.
I felt a bit betrayed by the geography notes here. There is no lake.
Not in the sense of a body of water, no. In the old Fujianese dialect spoken by the early settlers, the word hu didn't really mean a lake filled with water. It referred to a basin terrain.
A basin?
Yeah, a depression in the land surrounded by hills. Think of it as an inward concave shape.
So it's a bowl, a lake of land.
Spot on. And that bowl shape is the key to the whole story. Because it's a basin, water flows down into it. So historically, Neihu's identity wasn't defined by microchips, it was defined by water management.
Ah.
In fact, the sources highlight an old historical name for the area, Jiantu.
Jiantu, which translates to head of the irrigation channel.
Right, it marks the spot where the water distribution began for all the farms. This is the central theme we are going to track today. Neihu's history is a constant negotiation with nature.
I like that, a negotiation.
First, it was channeling water for rice. Later, as we'll see, it became about flood control for the modern city. But to understand the foundation of this district, we have to go back to the literal foundation. We need to talk about rocks.
Massive rocks. This brings us to our first stop on the map, the Qing Dynasty quarry remnants near Jinmianshan, or Golden Face Mountain. Now, I have hiked near there. I have seen big rocks. But I didn't realize I was looking at the skeleton of Taipei.
And it is so easy to miss if you don't know the history. If you hike up near Taipei University of Science and Technology, you are standing on a site that dates back to the late 1800s. The specific rock here is andesite.
Let's pause on andesite for a second. I'm not a geologist. Why did the Qing officials care about this specific rock? What's so special about it?
It's an igneous rock. It's volcanic. So it is incredibly dense, hard, and fire-resistant. When the Qing Dynasty officials decided to build the Taipei City wall, the fortification that defined the capital, they didn't use brick.
They wanted something that would last.
They wanted something permanent. They chose Neihu andesite.
So the walls of old Taipei were literally carved out of Neihu.
The physical start of Taipei as a capital city came from this mountain. It is the only quarry designated as a historic site specifically linked to the city wall construction.
Wow.
What really jumps out from the sources is the logistics. I mean, we are talking about the 1880s. No diesel trucks, no cranes.
That is what I was trying to visualize. You are up on a mountain, you cut a block of stone that weighs, what, tons? How in the world do you get it to the North Gate?
Gravity and grit. That's how. If you go to the site today, you can still see traces of the stone slide slope.
A stone slide.
They essentially built a toboggan run for boulders. They slid these massive blocks down the mountain. Then they had to load them onto boats at a ferry point, ship them down the Keelung River into the Tamsui River, and finally unload them at the city site.
That is an insane supply chain. It makes the logistics of shipping semiconductors look easy.
It really highlights the sheer back-breaking labor involved in urbanization. And here's a detail from the notes that I just love. The city walls were eventually torn down by the Japanese colonial government to make room for boulevards.
Right, for wider roads.
But the stones, they didn't throw them away.
Too heavy to move again.
Too valuable to waste. They were repurposed, Those andesite blocks were used to build the foundations of public buildings, bridges, and even the sewer systems.
No way.
The sources suggest that you might be walking through a metro station underground today, or looking at an old drainage ditch, and you are actually looking at a piece of Neihu quarried 140 years ago.
That gives me chills. You are touching the bones of the old city without even knowing it. So we started with the Stone Age of Neihu, but the sources show a shift. We go from building walls to powering the economy. We are moving from gray stone to black gold.
Coal.
I have to admit, this one surprised me. I just don't associate Taipei City, especially Neihu, with coal mining. I think of like Keelung or Pinqi.
Everyone does. But it was a huge part of Neihu's mid-century identity. And this was an ancient history. The Xinfu main pit operated from 1946 all the way to 1986.
1986. That is startlingly recent. I was alive when coal was being hauled out of Neihu.
It produced over 460,000 tons. This was the fuel for Taiwan's post-war industrial miracle. But it ended because of a tragic combination of factors, shifting economics, cheaper imports, and a series of devastating mining disasters across Taiwan in the 80s that effectively killed the industry.
And today, the site has been transformed into the Baihu Trail.
Yes, and this is a beautiful example of what ecologists call land healing. The trail actually covers the old transport tracks where the heavy coal carts used to run. If you hike it today, you can see the tunnel entrance and the old rails, but they were just being swallowed by ferns and moss. Nature is taking it back.
There is a fascinating juxtaposition mentioned in the source material here that I want to dig into. Right near this gritty industrial site is the Ya Ancestral Hall.
That is a great observation. The Ya Ancestral Hall is this grand traditional structure. The family moved it there specifically because they wanted a location with good feng shui, quiet, peaceful, respectful to the ancestors.
But for decades, they were neighbors with a noisy, dirty coal mine.
Exactly. You have this stark contrast. On one side, you have the Confucian ideal of serenity and lineage. On the other, the loud, dirty, dangerous reality of industrial progress. They sat shoulder to shoulder.
It feels like a perfect metaphor for Taiwan's development in the 20th century, trying to keep the tradition while the engines are roaring next door.
And now that the mine is closed, the silence has returned. The land has absorbed the noise. It is a very peaceful place now, but if you know the history, that silence feels heavier. It feels earned.
So we have had stone. We have had coal. Now we need to add some heat. Let's talk about fire. And this brings us to one of the most intense traditions I have ever read about. We are going to the Jiantu Feud Temple.
The Earth God Temple. And notice the name again, Jiantu. We are back to the head of the water channel.
Right.
Originally, this temple was there to guard the irrigation water for the farmers. Very important job.
But the ritual they are famous for is, well, it isn't peaceful meditation. It is called night bombing the earth god.
It is exactly what it sounds like. It happens during the Lantern Festival. The belief is simple. The more firecrackers, the more wealth.
Just to be clear for the listener, when you say more firecrackers, you don't mean lighting them on the ground nearby?
Oh, no. You throw them at the deity, at the sedan chair carrying the statue. It is a bombardment.
A bombardment.
The sources note that the sedan chair has to be reinforced with special heat-resistant metal because the thermal intensity is so high. It is a riot of noise, smoke, and explosions.
The notes describe it as thermal enthusiasm, which is maybe the most polite way of saying controlled chaos I've ever heard.
That's putting it mildly.
But what is the logic? Why are you blowing up the god of the harvest?
It is about energy transfer. The thermal energy translates to economic energy. You are literally waking up the earth, shaking up the luck for the new year.
Okay.
But there's another layer to this temple that I find even more profound from a socioeconomic perspective. It is the turtle begging tradition.
The kigi. This is where you ask the god for a turtle, which is usually made of food, pastry, rice, or snacks, right?
Correct. You throw the divination blocks. If you get a yes, you take the turtle home. It brings longevity and peace to your household.
Sounds nice.
But here's the catch, and this is the genius of the system. If you take a turtle this year, you must return double the amount next year.
Double? That is 100% interest rate. That is worse than a credit card.
It is a steep rate. But think about what that does to the community. If I take a 1-pound turtle, I bring back 2. Someone else takes that 2-pound turtle and brings back 4, then 8.
It is a compounding interest scheme, but for snacks.
It is a cycle of sharing. It ensures that the blessings and the actual physical resources, the food, circulate and grow within the community. It bonds people together.
I see.
You are indebted to the god, yes, but by paying it back, You are actually feeding your neighbors.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant social contract.
It is really a form of microfinance or social insurance just disguised as a ritual.
Precisely. And it creates this amazing contrast. You have this quiet temple tucked behind the Neihu MRT station, which is usually silent. But once a year, it becomes this zone of fire and aggressive generosity.
It is the heartbeat of the old agricultural community still thumping away beneath the modern city. Speaking of old meets new, let's move to our fourth time capsule. We are heading to a quiet hill near the Wende MRT station to visit the Red House.
The Guo Family Ancient Residence. This is a fantastic example of what we might call the architecture of power.
Built in 1917, so we are deep in the Japanese colonial era here.
Right, and it was built by the first head of Neihu Village, so this wasn't just a home, it was a statement. The style is this fascinating fusion.
A fusion? How so?
You have the red brick and the Baroque decorations, the acanthus leaves, the scrolls, which were very popular in the West and favored by the Japanese administration to show modernity.
But the layout?
Totally traditional Taiwanese, the Sunhaiwan courtyard style. It's an inward-facing family compound.
So it's business in the front, tradition in the back.
In a way. It shows how the local elites navigated that era. They adopted the Western aesthetics to signal that they were modern, powerful, and aligned with the colonial government. But they kept their ancestral roots, the Fenyang whole name, to show they hadn't forgotten who they were.
There is one detail about this house that I absolutely love. It is the aha moment of the tour for me, the transparent floor tiles.
This is such a quirky human detail. So on the second floor, they originally installed glass or transparent bricks in the floor.
And this wasn't for skylights to let light in?
No, it was analog surveillance. The owner could look down through the floor to see who was at the door downstairs.
You're kidding.
It allowed him to screen visitors. He could look down and decide, do I want to put on my formal robe and go greet this person? Or am I going to pretend I am not home?
That is incredibly relatable. The introverts of 1917, ring, ring, nobody's home.
But the story goes that it caused a bit of a scandal. Because if women wearing skirts walked on the second floor, well, people downstairs might look up.
Ah, I see. The flaw in the design.
Exactly. It was a collision between modern innovation and traditional modesty.
Yeah.
They eventually covered them up. But it is a perfect example of the awkwardness of progress.
I love that. It makes the people who live there feel so real. It is not just a dusty old building. It is a place where someone installed a peephole in the floor and then realized, oops, bad idea.
And the fact that this building was abandoned for years, overgrown with vines and nearly lost, only to be restored by the Guo family, specifically the owner of Guo Yuanyi Foods, shows that connection to heritage. It is a survivor.
Okay, we have done stone, coal, fire, and the Red House. We have seen how Neihu was built, powered, and socially organized. Now we arrive at the final stop, and this one feels different. It feels like reconciliation.
That is the perfect word for it. We're going to the Jinrui Flood Control Park.
Now, I have to be honest, Flood Control Park doesn't sound like the most exciting tourist destination. It sounds like a concrete pit.
But it is the opposite. And this brings us back to the water theme we started with. Remember Jiantu controlling the water for farming?
Right, channeling it.
Well, for most of the 20th century, modern engineering tried to conquer the water. Concrete channels, high dikes, straightening rivers. But Jinrui represents the new philosophy. It is about accommodating the water.
Accommodating it.
It is a detention basin designed to hold excess water during typhoons to protect the city. But it is built as an ecological habitat.
And the star of the show here is the dragonfly.
Yes. This park is a sanctuary. The sources mention that 1/3 of all dragonfly species recorded in Taiwan can be found in this one park.
1/3. That is an incredible density of biodiversity for a city district. Why dragonflies? What's the significance?
Dragonflies are what we call bioindicators. They're extremely sensitive to water quality. If the water is polluted, they leave. The fact that they are thriving here proves that the water management is working ecologically, not just structurally.
And the centerpiece of this park is the dragonfly hut, or Tianning hut.
Yeah, and it's this beautiful structure made entirely from locally sourced thinned wood and recycled materials. It has stained glass that looks like dragonfly wings and red copper tiles. It is art.
It is such a departure from the conquer nature mindset of the quarry or the coal mine.
That is the key arc of our deep dive today. We went from the quarry harvesting the land, to the mine extracting from the land, to the flood park designing with the land.
It is almost like the city has matured. It has stopped fighting the environment and started dancing with it.
Urban resilience isn't just about strong walls anymore. It is about permeable surfaces and biodiversity. Jinrui proves that a piece of hardcore infrastructure can also be a home for nature.
So let's zoom out. We have looked at these 5 time capsules: the stone quarry, the foundation, the coal mine, the industrial fuel, the temple, the community fire, the red house, the cultural blend, and the dragonfly hut, the return to nature.
When you put them all together, you realize Neihu isn't just a tech park. It is a microcosm of Taipei's entire history.
It really changes how I see the commute. Usually when people think of Neihu, they think of it as a place people go to for work. It is a destination for 9 to 5.
But these stories suggest it is actually a place that teaches us how cities survive. Neihu has reinvented itself 3 or 4 times. It was a farming basin, then a stone quarry, then a coal powerhouse, and now a tech hub and an eco-district.
It is a shapeshifter.
It is. And for the listener, the takeaway is that the soul of a city isn't usually found on the main boulevard or in the shiny new lobby. It is found in the leftovers. The scratch marks on a rock, the old rail track hidden by ferns, the quirky floor tiles in an old house.
So here is our challenge to you, the listener. Next time you take the Brown Line to Neihu, don't just rush to your meeting or your dinner reservation. Get off at Wend or Neihu Station. Walk into the alleys.
Go find the dragonfly hut, or stand at the temple and just imagine the noise of the firecrackers.
The history is there, waiting for you to notice it. Neihu has a hidden soul, and it is made of stone, fire, and resilience.
And maybe, just maybe, understanding that history makes the traffic jam on the bridge a little more bearable.
Let's not get carried away. The traffic is still terrible. But at least now you'll have something interesting to think about while you're stuck in it. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Always a pleasure.
See you on the next Deep Dive.